Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is Rob with Diligent Dev, and today we're going to be going over my 6 favorite VS Code extensions that I use on a regular basis. Now, these are not all the extensions that I use. It depends on what language I'm working with, but these are language agnostic, so let's get right into it. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is Material Icon Theme. Now, you may be thinking that this is something that's more visually appealing, but when we take a look at it, you'll see that it allows us to find our files and folders much more easily. So this is the regular just VS Code icons that they give you. So we're going to go ahead and enable this. And you'll see now we've got all these great icons. And once you start getting used to them, it makes it a lot easier to find files and folders that you're looking for in your project. Now, the next one I want to look at is Night Owl. You might say this is another visual preference that I have, but anyone who has coded for a long amount of time, 8, 10, 12 hours, knows that it can really take a strain on your eyes. And with this theme, it keeps it really light and really dark to prohibit strain on your eyes so you can code for longer. I really love this theme. There's a couple different options you can choose from, but I would recommend that you check it out. So moving right along, our next VS Code extension is the Code Spell Checker. And if you're like me, you're terrible at spelling. I grew up in an era of spell checkers and autocorrect, and this has not only saved me with people I work with to not look like I'm a complete idiot, but it's also saved me with clients on the front end for not misspelling words on their website. So if we go over to our JS file here, you'll see that it recognizes this as completely valid. But if I go in here and change something like that, it's going to say, I don't like that. It's going to give me suggestions on what it thinks it should be. But it's pretty good in code. It catches most of the things that I would type in correctly. And like I said on the front end, you'll see here I have a little paragraph tag. And if I add something to that, it's going to say, did you mean hellos, hello, and you can go ahead and just change it. And moving right along, our next extension is the Bracket Pair Colorizer 2. And what this allows you to do is keep track of the brackets inside of your code and see what block that you're in. So if we go through a little demo here, you'll see that each bracket is a different color. And if I go inside of one, you'll see we get this little line here that allows us to see exactly what we're working on or what block we're working on at that exact time. And if I start to add more, this is probably going to throw an error, you'll see that each one that I add gives it a different color. So really helps to keep track of what block you're working on and your brackets inside of your code. And up next we have Live Server. Now, Live Server is a fantastic VS Code extension. There was a time that we did not have all these package managers that managed our web servers that launched and had hot reloading. So what you can do here after you install this is go to your files and click on one of them and say open with Live Server. Typically going to be like an index.html file. And what I'll do is I'll put this over here and we'll line this up right here. And you'll see that it is now set up a web server on a certain port, and it's broadcasting our index.html. And what I really love about this is it gives you all the great features that you can get out of other packages. Like if I add a paragraph tab and say test, and I go ahead and save that, you'll see that it automatically hot reloads and shows it right in the browser. And for our 6th and final extension, we have Debugger for Chrome. And what this allows you to do is set breakpoints in your code and step through them. And you can also hover over your variables and objects and see what is inside of them. So what I've done is in the index.js file, I've placed some code. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a breakpoint on this event listener for the click on our paragraph tag. And we're going to click this debugger. We're going to say run and debug. We're going to select Chrome. And this may take a second to download some packages. Okay, so we finally got it done, and you'll see here that we've got a configuration file. And inside of this configuration file, we're going to change a couple of things. The first thing we're going to do is take our URL that our live server generated. Instead of looking at localhost 8080, we're just going to replace that with the live server. Get rid of that backslash, and I'll just change this to launch Chrome Debugger. Now, since our live server is already running, I'm just going to save this and hit Launch Chrome Debugger, and you'll see that it launches with our live server. And if I click on this, that breakpoint that I had set gets hit, where we can look at all sorts of different things like this p tag element. I can look at all the properties that I have access to off of that and what's inside of those properties. You can step over and you'll see that your variables over here go ahead and update, and like I said before, you can hover over stuff. It's fantastic for, especially when you're working with an API and their documentation is lacking, you can go in and look at the objects and all the properties off of those objects. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up my my 6 favorite VS Code extensions. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them underneath the video. And until next time, happy coding.